What's going on?
Nada mucho. Just chilling out. It's about 10:05 here. So you feel you wide awake? You get a good night's sleep?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it was good. But yeah, and I'm getting this coffee down, but
Okay, yeah, go for it.
I feel creative.
Oh, good. That's good. Yeah, I feel kind of creative. I've been feeling creative throughout this entire COVID period. In fact, it's been a
Yeah.
creative period for me.
I like your what you've done with the space back there.
I'm trying to, do what I can. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
Got some little statuettes I got from Egypt. Couple paintings I recently made, creative period,
Oh,
um,
nice.
and Tree of Life, kind of glass. Um, what is it called? Stained glass type thing that my mom gave me.
Oh,
Uh,
that's cool.
yeah, and then the flag is my mom's father, my grandfather. When he died, because he was a veteran, they during his funeral they gave him a flag or gave the family a flag, which is
Right.
bad too. Yeah.
Yeah. Those you've got an Anubis, you've got I can't see
ISIS.
the is it Isis? She's got
Yep.
Hathor's kind of yeah,
Yeah,
Isis.
and then
She
just
subsumed a lot of
yeah,
Hathor.
sorry.
I was going to say she subsumed if those are the cattle horns with the
Hathor.
she
Yeah,
can she subsumed a lot of Hathor later on.
that's
Yeah.
right. That's right.
What's that
And
other
then
one?
there's the standard Egyptian guy kneeling, holding a couple candle holders.
Oh,
Which
that's cool.
yeah, that's kind of a modern thing.
Yeah, I brought some stuff back as well. We brought some stuff back. That
Yeah,
was
Egypt was interesting. I went there for work, a work trip, so I was just in Cairo. Didn't have
oh,
time to get out really.
uh-huh.
But of course, I had to make time for the pyramids and the Egyptian
Yeah,
museum. So I did that.
yeah.
And in fact, I was lucky to get into the King's Chamber. Uh,
Uh-huh.
we went in the morning, and it was at the time where it was like terrorist threats happening. In
Mm-hmm.
fact, the day before I went there, there was a terrorist, like a sort of dud bomb that went off on a tourist bus that didn't
Oh
quite
yeah.
work. That scared everybody. And I went the day after to the pyramid, so I think that kind of lightened the crowds quite a bit.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I got to go in the King's Chamber and crawled up that pathway or whatever. And
Uh-huh.
oddly, at the moment I was there, nobody was there. I couldn't
Oh,
believe it.
really?
I got into the King's Chamber all by myself, and it took me a minute to sort of realize, do I really have this to myself like this? And it just went on and on. I was there a half hour. No one came
Wow.
up. So I took advantage of it, and it was sort of testing the acoustics and the resonance, and I started doing like the vowels,
Mm-hmm.
uh, seven sacred vowels, and chanting it. It was just mind blowing how
Wow.
amazing that sounded. I mean, it's so full and robust and such resonance. I felt
Wow.
I felt like anything I said in that room continued for eternity. It just got
Yeah.
quieter and quieter, but it never stopped.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
that made me, and then so I also tried to do some prayers while I was there. I was like, shit, I should take advantage of this since these seem to be going out from here and
Yeah.
never end. I just can't hear them anymore, but it just gets quieter and quieter. But it felt like it kept going.
Yeah.
So I did some prayers, general praying, and it
Yeah.
was awesome. And then I felt like I was done, and I started walking back down, and this huge group of, I think, Chinese people were coming up. I was like, wow, just in time. Yeah.
Yeah. Pike Pike has there's a passage somewhere in Pike about resonance and the sound going out until it touches every I forget exactly how it goes, but I cite it in my new manuscript. But I'll find it, I'll send it to you. It's a
Oh, cool.
it has to do with
Yeah,
what you're
yeah. Yeah, and in fact, I just read a quote, a Martinus quote, I believe, that said something to the effect of every thought, word and deed
uh-huh.
lasts forever.
Yeah.
Every thought, word, and deed that we create or that comes from us never actually goes away. It's
Yeah.
a permanent part of the record.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting stuff. So yeah, I guess be responsible is the bottom line.
Yeah.
Careful what you play with, right? Welcome. I'm really happy you came back, brother Jaime Paul Lamb, for episode 5, I guess, of this new
Is it?
Just Masons. I think it is episode 5, Just Masons. I mean, it's fairly easy to make a show. I mean, I just arranged with a brother that wants to talk, and we call up and we do a show,
Yeah.
which is really nice. And I'm trying to make them regular enough to keep people's interest and keep that momentum, but
Uh-huh.
not so frequent that people become overwhelmed and they just can't even keep up with the show.
Right.
So I'm doing, like, every 3-4 days, every 5 days. I mean, it really depends. Maybe at some point it'll become a regular thing where they're always released on Fridays, or I don't know. But I'm not. I'm all for emergence, and letting things sort of create themselves and just kind of, help things along a little bit and kind of facilitate, but not be prescriptive about how
Yeah.
things will develop. Yeah.
That's a good approach. That sounds
Yeah.
nice. And plus, you got the time right now. Everybody's kind of,
Yeah.
this is downtime for a lot of people. You might as well give them something to, you know,
Right.
watch if they got time or, yeah.
Absolutely. And so, I know that you have an interest in tarot cards.
Yeah, I'm
And
playing with them
yeah,
right now.
there you go. And so I thought it would be interesting to do this show around tarot. I've done Vedic astrology, as I've told you. So I have
Uh-huh.
some background in astrology. I tried to do a little bit of a sort of analysis of the situation in astrology, but I realized that's not going to happen in just a few hours for me
Right.
to explain what astrology says about the COVID situation, for example.
Yeah.
I did see a lot around Capricorn and Saturn,
Yeah.
a lot of conjunctions happening there. And so that got me looking into that. I started looking into what in Vedic astrology they call the nakshatras, or the lunar mansions, but I think in Western you call it the decanoids or something. You divide it into 10 equal parts each house.
The decans.
Yeah,
You divided, yeah, a 30-degree
right,
sign would be divided into 3 10-degree decans.
right.
In
And that would make
Western,
how many total? 30? Wait,
36.
36.
36.
36.
Because you got the ecliptic, which
Right.
is a 360-degree circle, 10
That's
degrees, 36 of them, and then the 12 30-degree.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, in Vedic, they divide the whole 12 signs up into 27 lunar
Uh,
mansions, they call them, or nakshatras, or like places where phases of the moon where the moon resides. And
there's
they have a meaning for each of those.
Yeah, they've got those in certain. Now, I'm not totally familiar with them, but certain Islamic, um, I think, calendars kind of mark those as well. And I'm not
Right.
sure if it's something that comes from Zoroastrianism or if
Right.
it's Persian.
Right.
It's probably a Persian deal.
Right.
Don't quote me, but it's something like that, and it's definitely present in I think Persian, Zoroastrian, and consequently Islamic astrology. The definite
Yeah. They're
lunar.
related. Yeah, they're related. In fact, I mean, just Saturn is a very restrictive energy, and makes you sort of go internal. And then Capricorn is a more restrictive sign of Saturn, which is like perseverance and hard work and focus,
Yeah.
and the slow, patient path. And so I think just on that level, it makes a lot of sense in light of what's happening with COVID. It's a shutdown. It's a major restriction on our
Yeah.
lives.
Yeah.
But the idea of Saturn is that even though it's somehow the planet of obstacles and difficulties and troubles, and it's the great malefic, or considered so, it's also one of the most spiritual of the planets. As in all problems, actually help you grow spiritually.
Yeah.
So, great father figure there.
For sure. Yeah, and it's those sort of things. It's that try us and that
Right.
give us something to chafe against in order to grow. I
So,
believe.
yeah, so I'd like to ask you a question to start off. I mean, obviously, this is a show around masonry, right? And so some might ask, well, what the hell does tarot cards have to do with masonry? Is this new age nonsense? Why are you talking about this on a Masonic channel? This gives people the wrong impression. of Freemasonry, and we're a moral club of men, you know, righteous men trying to do charity work. And what are you
Right.
guys doing? What are you crazy kids doing?
Yeah.
How do you
Well,
respond?
well, I don't think anybody's saying that tarot is sort of implicit or baked into anything Masonic ritual, Masonic symbolism, um, you know, any or allegory. I don't think there's any tarot inherent in that material. I don't think there's any tarot symbolism inherent in that material. But
Right.
I do know that there is Masonic symbolism and ideas inherent in the modern tarot, modern occult tarot. So tarot post 1781, because you got to look at every single, and I was just talking about this, at every single crucial juncture in the development of the tarot. So from Antoine Court de Jabelin's Le Monde Primitif, 1781. He was a Freemason. Desmarais, who put the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet to the 22 trump cards of the tarot, he was a Freemason. Eliphas Levi, who did the same thing and wrote his Dogma and Ritual of High Magic in 22 chapters and attributed a tarot trump to each of them. He was an entered apprentice Freemason. He didn't go further than that, but he was initiated. I don't know how to say his name. Atiela, I believe he was a Freemason. Alietta, it's backwards, and he was a tarot guy, an occult tarot guy in France. He was a Freemason. Going forward, let's see. Kenneth Mackenzie, the author of of one of the Masonic encyclopedias, and a member of SRIA in England, and a Freemason, and a member of a bunch of other bodies, and author of the cipher manuscripts, which became the curriculum of the Golden Dawn. He was a Freemason and was writing a book about the tarot. So you're talking about 1880, maybe sometime between 1860 and 1880. William Wynne Westcott, Samuel Little McGregor Mathers, all Freemasons who had some sort of involvement in the evolution of the tarot. So at every single time something crucial happened in the development of the tarot and into the 20th century, because look at Paul Foster Case, the Boda tarot deck, and the whole Boda system around tarot, a post-GD kind of Hermetic Kabbalah view of the tarot. Manly Palmer Hall had a tarot deck that he designed with J. Augustus Knapp, his artist that he used for all of his stuff. Freemasons have been on the scene with tarot for hundreds of years. And every time there's a crucial development in the tarot, a Freemason has been there. In modern occult tarot, post 1781. So post, around the end of the 18th century. So that's why I say it's not out of place to talk about. It's off to the side. It is not. I never would call it Freemasonry proper. I would never say you're a Freemason, you should know about the tarot. I don't believe it. I've never once said that to anybody.
Right, of course not. Yeah. And on another level, along with all those historical references to Masons and how they're so intimately connected in the timeline of the tarot cards and the development of the tarot, Masonry is about, largely obsessed with symbolism and symbology and allegory. And as a Mason, you start to learn to think more symbolically over time. You start to see relations between things that maybe you didn't see before, see connections between divergent concepts. And it's like a puzzle. It's like a riddle, Masonry. You get initiated, you're given clues, but you're not given answers. You're given hints, symbolic hints of this and that, but it's up to you to kind of solve the puzzle, right? And so that sort of develops a certain part of the brain and a certain intellectual capacity that might be uniquely Masonic. And I think that tarot is so highly symbolic. I mean, it's just all about symbolism and interpreting the meaning of symbols, that there's a natural marriage there with that Masonic mindset, I guess, of seeing relations, deciphering codes and symbols and what they might mean. So I feel like it could complement a Mason's capacities to understand symbolism.
For sure. I would say in terms of our work and what we do as Masons, and as you said, the kind of intellectual muscles that we develop, and decoding symbolism and the things that we're interested in, and searching for meaning inside of symbolism, which is so much of what Freemasonry is. I mean, like kind of digesting this numinous body of work that isn't readily sort of communicated. I mean, that's how we communicate the hidden mysteries of Freemasonry, right? We communicate them through symbol, ritual, and allegory.
Yeah.
So it's like, and that's really the only way that we communicate the hidden mysteries. Right. I mean, otherwise it's something you could just write in a book, and you can't just write it in a book. It's transformational. It's, it's sort of, it's initiatic, and the tarot, I would say, you get images on there. I'm just going through at random, but I mean, you get these images, like there's the tetramorph, which we encounter in the Royal Arch, you encounter them on the banners of the tabernacle, for example. You see the ones in the corner, the lion, the man. I just flipped this for, randomly, so there's just tons of stuff in there that as a Freemason, you're going to find things that resonate with you. There's the Roman eagle, which is mentioned in the apron lecture. If you guys,
which is pretty ancient, but maybe not as ancient as the apron, I think.
Right.
Well, according to some schools of thought.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So there's just tons of stuff and plus, once you start making connections, you see that he's the emperor, so he's decidedly martial, right? And if he's martial, you can make a connection about the Doric order. The Doric architectural order is sacred to Mars or Aries, right? Vitruvius says that. It's in his De Architectura. So the more kind of you put these pieces together, it's a process of meaning making that we use, and I just I think it's amazingly valuable.
I mean, this is a kind of a sidetrack here. I don't want to go down this road too far, but something that popped in my mind when you said that is that the two pillars, and especially on the tree of life, you have the pillar of mercy and the pillar of sort of strength or severity. Often what's can seem counterintuitive, even to me, is that the pillar of severity and strength is often considered the feminine pillar, and the mercy pillar is the masculine or the sun. And that is almost counterintuitive, because you think of the man as being the severe, where the strength is coming from, and the sun is male, right? But on the pillar of mercy is actually the solar pillar, right? In the Kabbalistic tree of life. And the one of strength and severity is considered sort of feminine and the lunar. Is that right?
So you would say the pillar of severity has Binah on top of it, and that is the black, feminine, receptive sort of pillar, the pillar of severity. But the one Sephiroth down on that pillar is Geburah, Mars.
Right.
So it's the Sephirah of severity. So that's on the pillar. And then on the other pillar, which the solar pillar is in the middle, that has Tifereth on it. Kether, Tifereth.
Oh, that's the middle.
That's the middle pillar.
Right.
So the pillar of mercy is kind of a jovial or Jupiterian pillar. If you're calling the other one a martial pillar, this one's kind of a Jupiterian.
Okay.
Because it has Chokmah on the top. And then the second one down, just as we had Geburah over here, we have Hesed over here, which is mercy. So you have severity and mercy.
I see.
Yeah,
so
because
it takes some unpacking. So you can't oversimplify these two pillars in a way.
They're kind of blended up a bit.
Right. Right.
It's more. I've always appreciated a more sort of, I guess you could say, a horizontal approach, a more Yatziric kind of path-based approach than just strictly a vertical kind of pillar look at it.
Right.
Although they're both important and they inform each other, I think it's important to keep them as one piece, I guess,
Yeah,
like,
yeah. Yeah, it's like a holistic system. It's not so linear, even though it is a linear diagram. The real world doesn't operate linearly. And in fact, all these spheroids are kind of active and emergent constantly at the same time in
right.
some abstract sense, that we probably can't fully understand.
Yeah.
So these are all activated forces that are constantly interacting and exchanging.
Yeah. And speaking of the tarot, so you're not off path there. It was funny. I think you even used that terminology, not to go off of that path, but
Right.
all the paths on the tree of life correspond to a certain tarot card from the major arcana. So there are 22 paths that connect those Sephiroth, and each of them have a tarot card from the major arcana. 22.
This is good. This is good. So I want to get into that, and I want to get into maybe a little explanation of the tarot and how it works and how you do a reading and just the basic stuff for like beginners. But maybe before we talk about that, it would be interesting. I mean, from my own perspective, I saw your presentation, which was awesome. The tarot cards and the history of the tarot that you gave recently. But one thing I wanted to understand better is like, okay, so it sounds like the tarot actually emerged out of the regular deck of cards. And that maybe the deck of cards originally wasn't necessarily just a simple plaything. And so I'm wondering what you know about that. Like, where did this idea of the deck of cards come from? And what was its original purpose? And was it always sort of a symbolic, I don't know, magical exercise or auricular device? Is that right? Auricular? No.
Oracular?
Oracular device? Related to being an oracle?
Oracular?
Maybe that's it. I don't want to confuse that with the eye doctor, but hey.
Ocular.
Yeah.
Well, I think it could be probably both ocular and oracular, right? I guess because you got to look at them to get the message. But
right.
I think I know what you're saying. So the playing cards, from what I understand, kind of migrated from points east. I'm not sure exactly where, but I know Mamluk comes into the equation, Damascus maybe, and just those typical Silk Road trade routes, the nodes on that trade route kind of make it into Europe around the early 15th century. And there are no trump cards in those. So they're not properly tarot. They're strictly playing cards at that point. I believe there are court cards and pips, and numbers vary. It's not until pretty recently that we end up with 52 cards and 52 playing cards and 78 tarot cards. That's the codification and standardization of those things have happened relatively recently, but it wasn't. So the playing cards make it over into Europe in the beginning of the 15th century. They entered, obviously leisure time and games and stuff is those things are pretty much relegated to the courts and royal society, and so you start to find these sort of leisure activities and games and nice ornate cards in the Sforza family and the what was it? Sforza would play Tarocchi. There was Tarocchi or Tarocchi was a game, but there was also I forget the other courts. There are several other courts that are associated with early leisure kind of recreational tarot when they did add the 22 trumps.
Right.
But then, you're talking about the beginning of the sort of mystical approach or the divinatory approach to tarot, which I believe, though that may have happened in their Eastern application as well, in terms of, reading the cards as sort of oracularly. I think that we can definitely see that. The first demonstrable cases of that in the West, I believe, are the Romani people.
Mm. Oh, yeah.
And thanks, Brother Owens, for helping me with the Andrew Owens helped me. I couldn't pronounce Roman. I was like, is it Romani? I thought it might be Latin or something. Romani. He was like Romani people. Anyway, they were gypsies.
Yeah. Gypsies, yeah.
They were literally like, so where we get the term gypsy, because they thought they were Egyptian. Or they believed them to be Egyptian. So who knows? Maybe the cards, because of Mamluk and all that connection, maybe the cards made it into Europe via the Romanis, who used them not only for as a recreational, activity, but used them for divinatory purposes as well.
Nice.
And so
yeah.
that's
Yeah, no, it's interesting. And in fact, I was watching a documentary or something recently that had mentioned Ram, the word Ram being in relation to Egypt, or the Egyptian people were the people of Ram or something. And, I thought of Rama and Ram from, the Vedic also, because, these peoples were all kind of interlinked somehow. And Ram, and then I thought of the Romani people, the gypsies.
Romani.
Yeah, and then your connection to them being supposedly from Egypt potentially, and nothing's really sure. So it's fascinating. Really fascinating. The one thing that sort of discouraged me about the tarot is when I heard there was like 78 cards. I was like, Jesus Christ, it's so much, so many cards. Why do we complicate things? We always tend to expand, and it reminds me of the Scottish Rite degrees. And through all of them, and it's just so much information. It's almost to the detriment of the information. To be pouring out constantly so much symbolism, so much allegory, where it becomes everything gets lost in this massive mix now. And you know what I mean? I'd almost wish it was a little more elegant, and actually less sometimes is more. So was there an older version of the tarot that was very simple, and then it's expanded over time?
I think
cards or something.
I think there were, in some cases, there were actually more trump cards. I've seen some with as many as I think there were upwards of like 40 something cards in the major arcana. So that's something you got to differentiate.
Wow.
The major arcana are the trump cards, the 22. Now they're 22 trump cards. That's what they've settled on. But long ago, we've settled on 22 trump cards.
Right.
But that number, expanded and contracted. There are some decks I've seen that have, I want to say, over 40 trump cards. But then the pips and the court cards, so the minor arcana, is which retrospectively would apply that term to the regular playing cards. The minor arcana are usually 10 pips, an ace and 9 pips. And then the court cards. Now, sometimes in a modern playing card deck, 52 cards, there's going to be the 10 pips and 3 court cards, right? So you're going to have the king, queen, the jack. But in the tarot, you have 78 cards because you're adding in your minor arcana, you actually have 56 cards because there are 4 court cards in a tarot pack. So you have the pips, you have the ace, and then you have 2 through 10. But then on top of that, the court cards in the tarot consist of 4 cards. So you have a king, queen, a knight, and a page, you might call it, or a princess sometimes. It depends. But you have 4 court cards, and then you have the 22. Right. So you have 56, 22 is 78 cards, totaling in your standard tarot pack today.
Right, and so if you're going to start learning tarot, would you start with the major arcana and start learning the meanings of those first, the 22 cards?
A lot of people do, yeah. I think there's good introductory books like I think a lot of the big one for most people is you get a Rider-Waite deck, and you get the little white book that comes with it that has standard, quick reference, quick and dirty kind of
Right.
reference on what the cards mean. But then you might go a little further and get, I went to like Waite's Pictorial Key to the Tarot, which is like the companion volume that US Games puts out, and then which is like a small paperback. And then there's Eden Gray's Practical Guide to the Tarot, I think it's called. That's a standard, classic in tarot literature. It's just your regular Bantam paperback. And then beyond that, it depends which. Now this is important because it depends which way you want to go with it. If you want to start getting conversant with the meanings and reading for friends and stuff, or that sort of thing, or if you're into personal reflection where you like to just have some sort of symbolic dialogue with the material, and it helps your process of self-reflection and like your morning meditation or whatever you decide to do with it, or if you fit it into your Masonic work somehow, or there's the sort of Hermetic Kabbalah approach where it's like it's an integral part of the theoretical like knowledge base that you need in order to navigate things like we were talking about the Tree of Life earlier. Each of those paths correspond to one of the cards in the major arcana. Right. So if you're going to develop the full schema, the theoretical knowledge base to join an order like Builders of the Adenum, certainly any Golden Dawn based order, or anything like that, you might want to become conversant with the Hermetic Kabbalistic vantage point on the tarot, because it's a large part of that toolbox.
Right. Would you be able to give like an illustrative example? I mean, I know that there's 22 paths, and each of those paths correlates with a card in the major arcana. So what can we learn from any one of those major arcana cards in terms of that path on the Kabbalistic Tree of Life? Like, can you think of an easy example of a lesson that needs to be learned, and that tarot card sort of reflects that in order to go from point A to point B in the Tree of Life?
Sure. Like, I think it's the 27th path, which goes from Yesod to Netzach, right? So it goes from the moon to Venus, you might say, if you look at it planetarily. Or if you look at archetypally, it will go from Luna to Venus, or Hecate to Aphrodite, or Artemis to Aphrodite, depending on which way you look at that. So there are, and the path that connects them is path 27, which is associated with the star tarot. So the star, as if you look at, say, the Rider-Waite version or the Marseille version, there are 7 stars in the sky, while this woman, this Aquarian woman, is pouring out 2 pitchers of water, just like the ancient hieroglyphic of Aquarius, a figure pouring out 2 pitchers of water. This goes back to the Egyptians and on through to, I believe, the Sumerians, or at least the Akkadians or Babylonians or the Assyrians, one of the Mesopotamian cultures anyway, so you get the Aquarian. She's associated with the star card, and she is on the star card. And in the sort of in the Hermetic Kabbalistic understanding of that path, one way to look at that, if you're doing what's called path working, right, where you do sort of a creative visualization going from Yesod to Netzach. I know this is it's hard to just talk like entry level on this kind of stuff.
Well, okay, we can pass entry level too if we need to.
But if you invest yourself in that work, you find that tarot card or that key represents that path, and it represents a certain process going from Yesod to Netzach, in that, you have the 7 cards, or the 7 stars depicted just over the Aquarian water bearer, and they are the Pleiades, and then amongst them is Sirius, right? And if you look
all AKA blazing star in masonry. Sometimes some think.
yeah,
Right?
Venus and Sirius. You
Right.
know,
They're both conflated. Yeah.
the blazing star is a five-pointed star.
The pentagram. Yeah.
Right. So that's the rosette that's made by Venus over
Yeah.
its synodic orbit, right? So
Fascinating.
there's really a connection there. I in fact wrote about it in my new manuscript.
Oh,
There's
cool.
and I wrote a standalone paper on it recently, about 2-3 months ago, called "The Lunar Occultation of Venus,"
Oh,
where there's a synthesis that happens there between them. It's a lot to get
wow.
into,
Wow. Wow.
but
No, that's really fascinating.
yeah.
You know, I'm thinking that, you know, what could be fun right now is to do a kind of on the spot little reading to learn how a reading would be done. And I was wondering if there's, since 3 is such a big number in masonry, if there's any such a reading where you just pull 3 cards randomly and you look at them and try to interpret them in light of whatever question a questioner has. Is there a process like that? I know there's rules to the games, you know, but
There are processes like that,
right.
and people do random. People do just random
Yeah,
draws and
yeah, yeah.
kind of reflect them. I never do that,
Oh, okay.
only because I want it to have something to do with something. You know,
Right.
I want it to be like astrologically significant, or I know, and that's just me. If you do
Okay.
random draws, that's
Right. I understand. So what's your process? How do you do it normally?
all right. What's your what's your birthday?
November 3rd, 1971.
All right, so November, December. So we're looking at you're a
In Western
Sagittarius.
Scorpio. Western, I'm Scorpio.
Oh,
But
you're
in
a
Vedic,
Scorpio.
I'm Virgo rising, and they go by the ascendant in Vedic astrology. But I still have all my benefics in Scorpio, even the Vedic chart. So I have Jupiter, Mercury, and Venus in Scorpio in my Vedic chart. So I have a lot of Scorpio tendencies, but I have some Virgo too. You know, sort of the analytical stuff.
Okay, so we're gonna do Western tropical.
Yeah,
So you're a Scorpio, and you said your birthday was what day? What date?
November 3rd,
Third.
1971.
So you're going to be the second deacon of Scorpio. Scorpio is fixed, so that's cardinal fixed. The second deacon, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's going to be the 6th, and Scorpio is a water, so 6 of cups. Wait, is Scorpio fire or water?
It's water, yeah, but it's kind of oily. You know,
Yeah,
it's kind of an
right. Yeah,
intense water.
right. So
An
so
abyss
this,
there.
it's going to be 6 of cups.
It's
Let me
creepy
write that.
water. It's very creepy water.
6 of cups. And what day of the week were you born on?
Ah, shit. What day was it? Oh man.
We could look it up.
Yeah, look it up. I can't remember now. I
We'll
think it might have
consult.
been Wednesday,
We'll consult
which
the
would be
oracle.
Mercury. Yeah, consult the oracle. If I'm remembering correctly, I believe it was Wednesday,
November what?
3rd,
12th,
1971.
1971. Go. That was a Wednesday. So the magician. So I just wrote down, here's how you generate a 3-card spread quickly based on somebody's astrological information.
Mm-hmm.
So you're a Scorpio. That's your zodiac sign, right? So
Okay.
that's that 30 degrees, right?
Mm-hmm.
6 of Cups is your decade. That's the 10
The part
degree.
of the 30 degrees. Yeah, the 10-degree part. Yeah.
Exactly. So we were refining that 30 degrees down to 10
Getting more
degrees.
specific. Yeah.
And now we're confining it down to one of 360 degree. We're defining it to
So in other words, I'm not just any Scorpio, but a particular type of Scorpio within that 30 degrees. You're right here, and that means something.
You're a Scorpio in the second decan of Scorpio on a Wednesday. So we've narrowed it down to right. So you can narrow it down to your planetary hour if you wanted to. Consult Agrippa's tables and get it down to that. But I'm going to find right now the Death, 6 of Cups, and the Magician. So give me a second. Death.
Sure, take your time.
I got to go through 78 cards here, but
Okay.
Death, 6 of Cups, and the Magician. I already got the Magician, so we just need 6 of Cups and Death. So give me a second.
Mm-hmm.
What else is going on today for you while I'm doing it?
You know, it's catch-up day for me. I mean, I've been a bit distracted, so I might do some work. After this, I'm going to just do some editing of this video, you know, get it prepped and get it on YouTube, share it with folks. And then after that, I would like to read. Got, you know, so much I want to read. I've got stacks and stacks of books that, you know, I just keep buying books and never have time to read them. I'm sure you know the problem.
Yeah, I'm a good 30 books backlogged, right? I have
Right, me
30
too. And I
here
love
that
them all so much, you know, and I want so badly to read them all.
Here's what we have. So we have zodiacal sign right there, which
Right.
is Scorpio in common hermetic correspondences. Scorpio is attributed to the Death card in the major arcana.
Right.
That's your 30 degree on the ecliptic. Here's 10 degrees on the ecliptic, the 6 of Cups.
6 of Cups.
Yeah, that's the second decan of Scorpio. And this is your weekday, Wednas.
Wednesday. Okay.
Wednesday, right? So Wednesday is sort of the hermetic archetype, right? And that and
Mercury.
Mercury is attributed to the Magician, appropriately.
Is that the Magician? No, that's not, right? Or is it? What is that?
That is the Magician. That says, pardon my French, le bateleur. It means the juggler.
The juggler. Kind
But
of joker, magician.
Maybe trickster, mercurial trickster.
Yeah, there you go. The alchemist.
Right. So if you were looking at these 3 cards in sort of a linear narrative, now this is more important for you than it is for me. These are your cards.
Yeah.
You know? So it's like, if you're looking at these 3 cards, what's maybe a linear narrative you might come up with? You might think of transformation. You might think of 6 as being the sort of heart center of water. You know, it's like it's basically Tifereth in Bria, to put it Kabbalistically. So because Tifereth is the 6th Sephira, right?
Right.
Yeah. So you could look at this through the Hermetic Kabbalah lens, or you could look at this as just, you know, the hexagram and that sort of watery hexagrammic kind of. You could look at it through the Pythagorean lens of what the number 6 means to you, above and below. You know, you could look at it in terms of the Solomonic seal and water, you know, how those 2 things relate and come up with some sort of synthesis. There's just a lot of different interpretations you can do, or me as a reader can sort of interpret this stuff and translate tarot symbolism for you. But I think you're perfectly capable, you know. And then
that's interesting. I mean, what I'm seeing, you know, from my vantage point is kind of this guy working with the craft, kind of the alchemist, the trickster, you know, working, you know, to combine certain elements, trying to understand, and then maybe a sort of some kind of fruition process with the 6 of Cups. Something comes out of it, and then, you know, this transformation where, you know, okay, that's resolved. Now back to the drawing board. Now back to mixing. You know, and you know, some things have to die and new things have to come, and then you're back again. You know, it definitely, I see a lot of transformation here, and change.
You see Saturn and time, and that temporal thing we were talking about, and all that Saturnal stuff we were talking about.
Yes.
You know, and you know,
Saturn is stronger in my chart. I mean, I have, again, I'm referring to the Vedic chart, so you'd have to move stuff like whatever 21 or 22 degrees forward to get the Western. But in Vedic, I have my Saturn's in Taurus, which is a fairly strong place for Saturn.
Yeah. So here's the deal. It's like, yes, you can get into the symbolic minutia and theorize and intellectualize it, and that's fun.
Sure. Yeah.
If you're a Freemason, that's fun to do, right? So it's like, you know, and if you've read any sort of, you know, if you're interested in that sort of looking into the symbolism and unpacking it theoretically and intellectually, that's a blast to do. But another thing that's important is you should take these 3 cards. I imagine you have a tarot deck at home.
I have that. What is it? The Rider deck. I bought that. Yeah, I bought that, but I've lost it now. I think my kids got a hold of it, so I'm looking around the house for it because now I'm kind of interested.
Take a screenshot of these 3 images. Here, hold on. Let me get them in order for you.
I'll take a literal screen photo.
Here, shit. Let me see. Hold on.
All
right, there we go. Take a screenshot of these 3 images.
I got it.
You got it? All right. So these images are important to you. Meditate on these images. Now, here's where I think the real value is in the tarot. I know we're running kind of long on this.
This is good.
Here's where I think the real value is, and this is the gold, right?
Right.
When we are able to just kind of clear our minds and look at this and let these symbols kind of come to us on their own terms, just like we do in Masonry. When you go through an EA, when you go through your degrees, you ultimately don't know what's going to happen. And you just let this initiatory transformational thing happen to you, right? This is a mini version of that. You're going through a narrative that you don't have to intellectualize. You should just let the images speak to you. Let them penetrate as deeply into your psyche as possible, because not only are they penetrating into your psyche, there's ultimately a dialogue kind of happening where you are unconsciously projecting elements of your personal unconscious and maybe even elements of the collective unconscious, dream images, various psychic materia. This sort of stuff is having an unconscious interaction. It's projection. In the Jungian sense, they call it projection. And projection means when the material is externalized and there's sort of a feedback loop, and you can get access to shadow material. So you know what the shadow is in the Jungian sense. It means stuff that is outside of the scope of your consciousness. It is the stuff that your conscious mind does not own about you, though. The stuff is about you, but your conscious mind doesn't own it. It doesn't realize that it's a part of it. Therefore, it can't integrate it. That shadow material cannot be integrated into your full coherent picture of self, capital S, until you've seen it, right? So
it's sort of like what is that picture of Jung? Did you send me that where he's saying, "Where are my glasses?" And he's got them up on his head. That's that shadow. I mean, it is part of you, but you can't see it for some reason.
His glasses were refused to accept that they're. And some of the stuff is stuff you refuse to accept. So it might be, oh man, it really bugs me when people act like this certain way, when people engage in behavior X, and behavior X may be some part of you that you refuse to see. And the only way you're going to see it is by its reflection. So,
or part of you does see it and hates that about you, but you're not consciously aware that you even hate that about yourself. And you're noticing it hypersensitive to it in other people because on some level, that's the part you hate about yourself, but you're not embracing that in the conscious level. You're not seeing that clearly. Right.
So I brought that up, and that's kind of a simplistic view of it. It's obviously more nuanced than that. It's, Jung made a lifetime out of that sort of work. But if the cards can be used as projection holders of unconscious material. And through the act, and this is key, through the act of active imagination, you can begin to digest some of that material and integrate it into a more coherent picture of
that makes a lot of sense. And I think also just the struggle of looking at cards, and trying to understand what's this say about me or my situation or my question or whatever. in a sense, it's an intellectual shakeup too of the system, of your mind and your way of interpreting the world, and that can bring new insights because it's so disruptive. The
Right.
process of trying to understand this, which looks like something very confusing potentially, and so in that way, it's kind of like a Zen koan. It shocks the mind and can lead to some new revelation or insight, just like psychedelic drugs, for example.
Yeah, it's a dissonance that seeks
Medicine,
resolution.
yeah,
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 yeah, the dissonance seeking resolution, but there has to be a dissonance in order for there to be
yes.
consonance, right?
There you go. You got it. Yeah. So
Yeah,
it kind of creates some dissonance. And so then the mind starts to struggle to bring the consonants, to bring
yeah,
some order to that chaos. So it's like you present yourself with chaos, but in that chaos, there's always some underpinning of order that needs to be discovered. And so the mind goes through that process, and that's a journey. And through that process, you may discover something new about yourself.
yeah.
And maybe even something like you're saying in your what is it, the dark what was it,
Shadow.
the shadow side. Yeah.
Hmm.
I mean, I think that this is a good connect to masonry, maybe, to sort of finish this talk off. And the idea of the working tools, and that we have working tools in masonry. They're symbolic working tools. They're actual physical tools to build a temple or whatever. But at the same time, these tools all can be seen on a metaphorical level as tools that can be used to improve our character, or to improve ourselves, or self-actualize
Hmm.
ourselves, or develop ourselves spiritually. Like the most basic one, the sort of the hammer or the gavel, right? Is used to sort of break off the rough corners of stones. But it's also that we should be using a sort of metaphysical, or metaphorical, I should say, gavel or hammer, to break off the negative traits within ourselves. Like, say I got an anger problem. I keep
Hmm.
losing temper with my son, or maybe I'm really jealous when another Mason gets an award in lodge. These are kinds of the things we gotta chip away at this stuff. We got to get rid of this stuff. It's no good. It's holding us back. It's giving us bad experiences. We don't want to have bad experiences. We want to be happy. We want to have a great life. We want to enjoy ourselves, and
Yeah,
bring positivity into the world. So we have to work on those things. And I think that that's what these tools are that we have in masonry, is to
yeah,
help facilitate that process.
yeah. I would
Yeah,
agree 100%.
a lot of work,
Yeah,
a lot of work to be done. But little by little, right?
yeah, we're doing
Yeah,
it.
yeah. They have a proverb in Africa, and I lived in Mali, West Africa, for 8 years, uh,
Hmm.
from 2005 to 2012. Then I had to leave because there was a coup d'état. Senegal. Then after Senegal, I lived there for 4 years, and then I lived in Cameroon for a year. But in Mali, they have a proverb in the local language, Bamana. It says "Doni doni kononi be nyagada," which means slowly, slowly the bird builds its nest.
Mm.
It's the whole idea of sort of patience in the process of life, and that
Yeah,
learning comes little by little. There is no shortcut, in fact.
yeah.
Um, Even the best, Kundalini Shakti yoga teacher probably couldn't get you there quicker. I don't
Right.
know. I don't think there could be a shortcut unless you're meant to. You're on some verge where you're going to be there quicker, and you're at a tipping point. Then you might quickly come to some stage. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, who would want it quick and easy, really?
Yeah,
Quick and
yeah,
easy. That's who wants the Wikipedia version of Illumination? You know.
exactly. Cool, brother. Well, thank you so much for taking time to come on the show again, and I'm sure I'll be seeing you again very soon. God
Thanks
willing.
for having me. Thanks for
Yeah,
having me. It's always a pleasure, and I hope we were able to clear up some of the. Yeah, I like that you
yeah.
brought that up. How does it fit into Freemasonry? And I think.
Right. It's important. Yeah, and I think hopefully brothers understand a little better now.
Yeah, and it doesn't
Yeah.
have to fit in. It doesn't have
Doesn't
to.
have to be a fit in. It's just something interesting, a side little
Yeah,
lesson, I guess. Yeah.
I would argue that it fits in more than it fits in more than pancake breakfast, or even it fits it fits in more than say the Toys for Tots or bicycle program.
Right,
You
right.
know?
Yeah, there's an argument to be made there, certainly. So yeah, we'll see. Hopefully, people found it interesting.
Yeah.
I certainly did. So thank you, brother.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Right. Oh yeah,
Do
cheers.
you have coffee? Well,
Look
what's
at
what's in your coffee?
coffee.
Good. That's the way it should be. All right, brother. Have a great
All right.
day. We'll see
You
you.
too. We'll see you. Bye.
All right.